Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to RLAfterShock, the longest-running independent podcast for everything that is Rocket League esports in the European scene. I'm the Eternal J. I'm joined by DigiBay after what has been a fucking hectic weekend, not just from the Rocket League perspective. We've both been busy little boys, haven't we, mate?
Yeah, we definitely have, but like just Rocket League perspective, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, all, top end action, not including the invitational. Rocket League is absolutely stacked at the moment, dude.
Oh yeah, it absolutely is. There's so much content going on, so much so that we barely even watched any of it.
We've caught up now. I've caught up now, but
I
it's
haven't.
just definitely a case of it's hard when we're casting and doing other stuff alongside all these major events. Like Monday night, we were doing TCS whilst the RLCS was going on. It's hard, isn't it?
Mate, these last few weeks have been so fucking tough, especially with like ESL stuff going on. Like for those who've been following my share, I've been doing the minor qualifiers, and those are some late nights. They had us doing 12-hour days over this weekend. So like I didn't even get the chance to watch EU stuff, let alone, focusing on the North American side. So I'm completely fucked in terms of knowledge. You're definitely going to be carrying me through this show. But in terms of the results, it's not even going to be the main sort of like talking points. Honestly, there's been some big news happening this week, which is sort of going to be our main sort of revolvement around the show. I think a lot of you know exactly what we're talking about because coronavirus has cancelled Worlds this week. We're also mentioning about speculation of Envy returning to the scene, Remkoe's little issues on Twitter, and of course all the regular mailbag segments and the double header weekend from RLCS and RLRS wrapped up in Hull. So let's do the news. And we'll start where it's expected to start, I think. The World Championship has been cancelled, as was announced on March the 5th by Psyonix. This is due to the safety concerns, obviously going around about the coronavirus outbreak. We sort of saw this coming to a certain extent because obviously IEM Katowice was cancelled, and we're being CS:GO fans and everything. We expected some large events to kind of bite the bullet, and that was the first sort of like major esports event, if I recall correctly. I think there may have been one, at least one of the ones in the West. I know that there may have been some shit from what's the name? Asia. I know that there were some events cancelled in Asia and China, especially China, obviously. But this was sort of like the big one for the Rocket League scene. I'm going to start with you on this one, Bacon, because I've got a lot to say about coronavirus in general, and I kind of want to bring the sanity. I want to bring the sanity to the fold before I start popping off and doing my thing. So let's have you say your thoughts about this whole thing.
So straight up, understandable in Asia, where of course, like the virus stemmed from China. It started there, so of course hit Asia a lot quicker. To the point this last weekend, I saw there was the Gears 5 Worlds going on, and that was taking place over in Mexico, which hasn't been hit so hard. So of course they could keep on going. But you look at stuff like this, and you just look at it and go, they could have still held like a behind closed doors, just a purely studio-esque invitational, no viewers, no spectators going on for it. And this just seems like maybe, I know we always bag on about Psyonix and their planning and all of that. This just seems like this was the easiest result.
I'll give fair dues to Psyonix because there have been implications that actually it was the state of California that forced this decision on them. Yes. Because obviously they're being a California-based company. The intimation that I've heard behind the scenes is that California law dictated that they had to cancel their events due to health concerns, which, considering how much California law seems to govern the rest of the states, okay, fair enough. I can give credit where it's due on that respect. But on the coronavirus in general, why in the name of everything that is fucking real are we freaking the fuck out about this stupid thing, right? I'm sorry, I've had enough with this shit. This is not something to do with Rocket League. It's something to do with the society as a whole. Because the shit that we have seen in the past week, not just event cancellations, which I can understand for the sake of health and safety, but the fucking panic that the media have driven us to this point. This is one of many different symptoms that have caused us to be here. Do you want to hear some facts, Bacon? Do you want to hear some fucking facts? So, out of 8 billion, what are we at? 7 billion people, 7.5 billion people on the fucking planet right now, some stupid shit like that. We have, as of this moment of recording, 121,517 confirmed coronavirus cases. Of all of those cases, 66,000 have recovered. Now, if you count all ongoing and, concluded cases, that is a 54% recovery rate. Of all the closed cases, with which we've had 4,384 deaths, we have a 94% recovery rate. Now, I'm not being funny. That's not fucking, anything to be terrified of. How many of you out there have known about the recovery rate of this fucking virus? Probably not many of you, to be honest, because the media have driven it into our fucking heads that we need to be terrified and that everyone's cancelling everything. And, they're not giving you some basic facts about the basics of how, things are working within the context of the virus. It's the fucking flu. That's what it is. It's a strain of the flu that's had everyone driven mad because there is no official sort of cure, quote unquote, for it. Even though there is no cure for the general flu as a whole, there's just vaccines to prevent it. Which, fair enough if you want to develop those things, and fair enough if you want to stop the spread of it. I don't mind that. Go right ahead. But the fucking level of insanity we've been driven to about this fucking thing has gone beyond ridiculous measurement. And I think Psyonix are overreacting to a certain level with this whole thing. Which, cancelling Worlds is one thing, but not having a LAN event to close it out, I think, is going a bit too far, and certainly cancelling the studio broadcast, in my opinion, is a step beyond the fucking line.
So, I don't disagree with you in the sense of it is pure madness at the moment, but I can understand a lot of the cancellations. For example, like I said, about taking a midway point, you'd have an invitational behind closed doors. Yes. The biggest draw for me that's coming up this weekend is the start of the Formula One season. So a massive event going on down in Australia, of course, and a lot of international travel going from there. They're still going on. A lot of cases that's currently going on in Asia. They're looking at moving them to closed off events as well. So you're still having the competition go on, but it's just the spectators. You're reducing, risks from there. There are ways around them. Of course, we saw it with Katowice, of course. They got record viewership numbers. Of course, they had to bite the bullet, lose out, money on the event itself by running it there. But of course, the show must go on. And that's my problem with the mentality at the moment. I can understand closing off Worlds in that sort of format and changing it over. The studio broadcast is being lost seems a little bit crazy, but like we said, that was down to California law, so they had to push it onto an online broadcast. To that point,
I don't think the California law actually did that. If someone could correct me if I'm wrong, I think it only had to do with public large events on the scale of Dallas, having people turn up to work. To be honest, I do hope that Psyonix in general just closed down their office.
From my knowledge, a fuck ton of companies in certain parts of California have had to move to online work from home.
Is that the case?
So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair enough. That's fair enough to Psyonix.
There's something going on there, which, of course, we don't know enough about that area in the world to make a full judgment, but that's going on there. But we have to look on the silver lining. I'm just going to say...
Hold on. Before we get to that, there's one other thing that I have to fucking bring up, because...
Go on.
Whilst fair enough, the studio broadcast may have been implicated by the law of California, to me, that initially it seemed like a fucking... It screamed of money save. It screamed like Psyonix were trying to save money on the RLCS broadcast. And what backs that up is the follow-up to how they've tried to rectify the cancellation of the coronavirus, the cancellation of the LAN, okay? Because a few days after they announced that LAN was no longer going ahead, they sort of explained how they were going to rectify the situation and how they were going to, how were they going to provide for the end of the season. And what they said was, we're adding $250 of additional prizing to the regional championships across the 4 regions that were set to compete at the World Championship. Okay. Are you seeing something wrong here, Bacon? Are you seeing something?
Yeah.
$250,000 is half the prize pool of the actual World Championship. It sounds like they're cutting costs to me. I don't know about you, mate, but that's what it fucking seems like.
But considering, for me, the annoyance here isn't about the money as such, but the change up in the format of regionals. So for right now, just tack that money on. Sure, fine. But what should have been the solution would have been changing up that regional format from just this simple, sort of double limb that they've got now, and actually make it a proper competition capable of being crowned the definitive regional championship, rather than just this pissed off, one-day event that it currently is. And then if they did that, I would like to see a little bit of money on top. For me, the biggest difference right now is, of course, don't get me wrong, that's coming down to those 4 teams would have been at RLCS Worlds. They get a larger chunk of money. But it just shows the disparity within the scene. Like for me, you look over the South America, over to OCE, and the jump in prize pool there is crazy massive now.
I mean, but by comparison, like, let's be real here. Like, this is the difference between first place in NA and EU receiving 70,000, and in OC it's 37,000. Should be noted that Sam actually has less money in total because of the additional prize funding, which confuses the fuck out of me because they did better for my money at the last World Championship, and in general they have been the better region. Considering the struggles that OCE have had recently, that's fucking just really tragic in my opinion. But even so, as you said, the format as well should have been revamped. In my opinion, like adding prize money, and not even adding prize money is great, but like not even adding the full amount of the $500,000 that teams and players were promised, and then also turning around and not revamping the format to be legitimate. Like, I could appreciate the fucking playoffs being sort of like this weird sort of hodgepodge thing that so much stuff going on to try and like get teams to the finals. Like for that respect, I can understand it, but this should have been like a fully like result reset, like double elimination bracket. Like we should have had 5th and 6th start in the lowers, and then have 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th seed to the uppers, or have it like we did in the previous World Championships when it was all double elimination, and have 5th and 6th start against 3rd and 4th, and then see that into the 1st and 2nd who have a game advantage or a slightly like edge up to the next stage of the bracket. We should have had this play out in a much more in a much more what's the word? In a much more legitimate format, as you say. Like this should not. I think they didn't do enough, and they didn't fucking and they didn't declare this. Obviously, the fact that they've cut the main prize pool in half, like that to me is like the biggest offense. Like that's just not acceptable, and no one seems to be talking about this. By the way, no one said a fucking thing about the fact that we've halved the prize pool of World Championships. Yes, I know that cancelling an event can be expensive with the ticket refunds and everything like that, but you made a promise that this would be the $1 million season. Taking away $250,000 is not $1 million season now, is it?
Yeah. That is true. It feels like, and again, the biggest problem for us is that it's a regression of Rocket League, isn't it? That is when we're already asking, why is Rocket League stagnated? Why is it just kept at that same level for too long? Why are we not growing to the heights when you're seeing the invitational that just passed, the Rainbow Six being at 3 million, the spectacle it was. And we're always going to compare Rocket League to Rainbow Six because they came out near enough in the same time frame and had that same sort of growth arc as such. But it just shows that Rocket League is not growing the way it needs to be. It's just completely flattened out.
And who do we have to blame at the top of that? I think you guys can guess what the fuck I'm going to say about that at this point. So yeah, that is the coronavirus. One thing you did want to say though, however, is obviously the fact that Shogun is back on the broadcast because of this situation, which is probably the only big silver lining you can get. Obviously, we're happy to see Shogi back.
Is it inappropriate to do like thank you coronavirus chants and all of that now? Because I mean, the only thing we can complain about is why wasn't Johnny brought on at the same time? Because there's no excuse now when you're working internationally over an online broadcast. A lot of
I mean, it's a case that Johnny's rate. It's like at this point, Johnny's rate could be fucking like so high because he makes so much money off streaming. So to me, it feels like an appropriate it feels to me that it's appropriate that he didn't get hired, probably because his agent said, "Hey, this is his rate," and Silence were like, "Ha, no." I mean, hey, if you want to get us on the RLCS, we probably won't get on the RLCS based off this fucking podcast, but we're available to hire. So how about it, Psyonix? Let's fucking do this.
Good luck.
Yeah, exactly right. But yeah, that's the coronavirus. That's cancelling World Championship. That is the lowdown of everything that's going on. And it fucking sucks, but whatever. Moving on, off the back of the coronavirus situation, Ian from Envy, Team Envy, yes, that Envy, the director of player management at Envy, was on Twitter, and he said, as a quote tweet to the whole situation, quote, while at Envy and I aren't in Rocket League, bracket currently with eyeballs, I was definitely looking forward to attending the event here in Dallas. Regardless, happy to see Sandrock Studios taking proper precautions to value the health of people invested in their game. Now, we know that Envy did sponsor a team, of which the remains is now currently loosely based on the We Dem Girls side. Not the We Dem Girls, excuse me, not fucking TSM.
TSM.
They were We Dem Girls and they went to TSM. That was my fucking bad. But yeah, Envy tweeting, or Ian in particular tweeting about this, saying they're not currently involved in Rocket League. What is the intimation here? Are Envy looking to get back into the scene? If so, why the fuck are they fucking insane?
Jay, just straight up, you could slap this on the end of a fishing pole and put it out to sea. Because all it is bait. It's just general. It's just Twitter in a nutshell. Envy at the moment, with their dedication to the Blizzard Activision stuff with both Overwatch and Call of Duty, I can't see them having the money to near enough want to jump into Rocket League. You know, what else with CS as well? They've got a little bit going on, not massive amount from what I know last time. There is no reason at all for them to jump into Rocket League. It would just not make any sense.
I'm curious. I want to see if they have any any teams at the moment. I'm trying to look into them, but their website is fucking terrible. The Dallas Empire. Holy shit. They don't even have like a website for Envy anymore. Like, that's insane. Fucking hell. They've really gone in all in. You're right about that. Crap. Yep. Well, I mean, fuck. Like, what do you say to that? I mean, it feels appropriate to me that, you know, Envy did not want to get involved, because obviously Envy are one of those North American owners that heavily want franchising, so that they'll push for franchising left, right, and center. And it's only when Rocket League has franchising that they'll come in and they'll try and get involved. That's the only reason why they returned to fucking CS:GO, because this new Flashpoint tournament obviously has franchising involved in it. I think Envy may be one of the founding teams. I can just double check that very, very quickly here. Flashpoint is not loading for me. Damn it. Fuck's sake. See, this is how well I do. Yeah, they are one of the founding members here. They paid their buy-in price for Flashpoint. That's the only reason why Envy picked up a CS:GO roster, because they left CS:GO a while ago and they left the European scene behind. The only reason why they stayed in Rocket League was because they had a franchise spot with the Gfinity Elite Series, which has now been defunct. You know, all these things for Envy have come compiling into the point where they've just turned around like, lol, nope, we're not going to be doing, we're not going to be working within this context. You know, and that's the same thing. They've also dropped their StarCraft roster, who, you know, no longer exist. Obviously, their Rocket League roster is long fucking gone. Their PUBG roster is also completely gone when they found out that franchising was not a part of the PUBG ecosystem. The only thing that they have right now, as you mentioned, is all that shit right there. So, like, the bigger conversation to me happens is, what's that franchising deal, or is this like a move to franchising? Is this just bait? I think you seem to think that it is fucking bait, but something about this tells me there's a little bit more to the story.
The thing is, I can't see Rocket League going to franchising purely because they've got to be looking at what's going on with Blizzard in that division, just how much of a shit show that is. They don't have the capabilities to be able to put it on such a large scale like it would have to be. The best sort of option is to look it on towards like COD, because that was more like a little bit of a refined area to it, because naturally Overwatch just went way too big straight away. And I don't see Sonics having the will to put that down. Yes, we know they've got the Epic backing right now.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one, because, like, let's think about this. What is the RLCS to them? It's marketing. It's a way to make money. And if they don't make money, then they don't do something in Rocket League esports. You know, so that's the reason why there's no third-party lands. That's the reason why nothing goes on that overtakes the Psyonix official event. You know, that's how all these things have worked in Rocket League esports. And when they look at the way that Overwatch League has been run, and the way that College League is going to be run, 20 to 30 million buy-in prices, all to line the pockets of the developers. Like, what do you think they're going to see? Like, you know, it's fucking money signs.
You think they'll do it?
I think it's. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility if they're just looking at it thinking, "Hey, short-term cash and then fuck RLCS," and that's what will happen. By the way,
I just think
make no mistake,
seems like way too much effort for them. That's it. Everything about Rocket League is very low effort. If
there's a cash grab involved in it, I don't think that's going to affect it. Like, especially with the owners involved. Like, make no mistake. That's what all this franchising talk is about. By the way, like fucking Carmack from ESL straight up said it. For those of you who don't know about the way that about shit that's going down in CS:GO, ESL recently moved their pro league to a part franchising model, and Carmack went on an interview and basically said, the reason why we've had to do this is because that's what the owners want. Because they and he said it straight up, like they want to inflate the value of their organization, and because of the costs involved in running esports events, we have to do this. Or that's what they said that they had to do. I don't know how true that really is, and that's the truth of it. Like that's the reason why owners are pushing for franchising, because they want to fucking inflate the value of their organization. Because $1 million buy-in price is $1 million by default to your organization. If you make $2 million out of that, then suddenly that's $3 million of value. That's what they're talking about when it comes to franchising. It's all money. It's all business, and no one actually cares about the actual state of the scene as a result. We don't need franchising because we have that Epic Games backing. All we need is Epic Games to have a heavy hand and change something about the scene right here. They're not doing that at the moment, and that's the reason why all this speculation gives me a couple of worries, because we don't need franchising. I don't think any esport needs franchising. I'd like to see the idea of having a franchise side project, like having the RLFS, for example, the Rocket League franchising series. Fair enough, go ahead and do that. But the idea of franchising the main core championship, which goes against the main world championship, which goes against the core of everything that's esports and everything about it being open, like that's what worries me the most.
Yeah, it's understandable there, and like we've talked about franchising, how it could be done in Rocket League, and if you are to bring it in, that's how it should be done. But yeah, I still can't see that happening to the main series just because of past, examples. But if it does, there are clear reasons, and you can understand it. Just I don't know. It's the shade of I don't want it to happen, which might cloud my view, I guess.
Well, that's Envy potentially returning to the scene and potentially going forward with that. I've made my points very clear about this. If you want to know more detail, then feel free to hit me up on Twitter, and I'll let you know exactly why I do not enjoy the franchising situation. But moving on from Envy, we'll talk about. I think Remkoe was a previous Envy player. Am I thinking that correctly?
Yeah.
Remkoe used to play on the Envy side for up to RLCS Season 5, and unfortunately he's been in the news this week. I was a bit umming and ahhing about talking about this on the podcast because, like, personally, I don't like talking about personal shit. But Remkoe has felt the need to broadcast that live on his Twitter. Just yesterday, he tweeted, "quote, genuinely hate being alive more often than not. Wish I was different," which fucking sucks, obviously. I know that we've ragged on TSM as a whole. And a lot of the intimation here is that this is all just down to his own his own performances not being quite there in the RLCS, which you have every right to be upset about, by the way. Don't think that we're taking this for granted. But you in particular wanted to add this to the show. Why?
Because off the back of this, there's come out a lot of like, I don't want to just straight up use the term depression within a lot of Rocket League players, but it's coming down to the fact of you're getting a lot of the old guard or a lot of these players that just aren't able to perform. You got to think about, like, if Remkoe's coming out and saying this, how is, a lot feeling, just not being involved anymore at the moment. We're seeing there was another follow-up one coming out from Ignite where he's in a very similar situation. AS Monaco not performing at the moment, and it seems like, and I think the statement he made is, why are you guys building us to be these great players when clearly we're not? And it's hard because you're in the limelight, you're right up there, in the spotlight, all the time when you're in the RLCS. And it's just coming down to the fact of, there's got to be a team that's out at the bottom. There is always going to be a team that's losing. You take Complexity last season, not even being able to win a game. Think about how the players fought there. And there's just so much pressure on. I know Remkoe's like 24 at the moment, so he's not a kid anymore as such. But you got to be thinking, like, if this is how this dude is feeling after being so integrated into the Rocket League scene for so long, probably why he feels so bad with it. How does it feel for those 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds that are going through a very similar thing? So just honestly, naturally, there's a lot of stress going on in Rocket League at the moment.
Honestly, for me, it feels more like it kind of just goes to show Remkoe's strength, the fact he's been keeping it together for this long. Because he's been around for a very long time, and now he's finally starting to drop off. And I still agree that he's a washed individual. But the concept of him sort of being very in the dumps because of this whole thing is certainly something that I can relate to. I mean, fucking even us as casters, when we're not getting work, trust me, we fucking feel it. I just kind of wish that it didn't have to, go get to this point where it had to spill out publicly, because it does fucking suck. And sometimes the well-meaning people in these threads can have the most can do the most damage. Unfortunately, as Ignite said, don't make comments about them being the best in the world when clearly they're not. I don't think that any decent analyst would agree that TSM are the best in the world. But it's clear to me that Remkoe's struggling, even to the point where there was a clip that made the front page of the subreddit that saw Remkoe miss an open net. And it's like, when you're missing basic stuff like that, to me, it does feel like it's a mental game thing coming in from him. And unfortunately, we're at this point where it seems like it's getting a bit too much for the guy. Obviously, I don't know if Remkoe listens to this show. If he does, then honestly, I think it's clear. I think we have to make a quick disclaimer and just sort of explain things, because our criticisms of you as a player do not come down to your value as a human being. To be honest, I think that should apply to every player or personality or everything like that. If we're going to give you hell, we're giving you hell because of your actions within the context of Rocket League. I would much rather be fucking hearing you. I'd much rather be talking about you in the context of your resurgence in a year's time, rather than reading your eulogy in 6 months. Is what I'm trying to say. I hope you get over the wave. And if anything that we've ever said on this show affects any other player or anything like that, then our DMs are open if you want to hash it out. Because this is the thing that kills me the most on a personal level. And even though Remkoe will be struggling in the championship series over the next couple of weeks, I want to say, and probably over the next couple of months, I think that for him as a person, I hope that things get better.
Yeah, and I mean, keeping it being able to agree to a personal note. Naturally, this is one of those reasons why we're talking about needing a more buffered system, something that's more stable. RLRS, or the rival series, should be somewhere where, those old, more veteran pros, like we say, can just bring through the newer talent and sort of ferrying them. Because naturally, being as harsh as we say, Remkoe probably, he's realistic enough himself, so he would agree, he's probably not going to get a shot at being a world champion once again. But there should be, with all his experience, a place where he can make a living being the captain of an RLRS team for ages to come. Rocket League should be able to have a good few years with its lifespan, as games have moved more to a service sort of system. You're not buying a new game every year, every 2 years. You're continuously playing the same one. And Rocket League right now does not have that. It needs that third tier, which is an open circuit, to get into the rival series. And then through dominating the rival series, you make it into the RLCS. And where it doesn't happen, you can even see the players from rival series teams not being able to make a living. So it's less pressure for them, yes, because they're making it in for one season and then they're out. But you got to be thinking with that old Veloce mentality when they were back in secret, of just how they are continuously at the top, not feeling good enough to get through. They would have been going through those same sort of pains, and it's all coming down to different areas of an ecosystem, being realistic to yourself, and just life in general. Sometimes it can be fucking harsh, can't it, Jay? But
yeah, and I think
he's just one of those lads that says celebrity in the spotlight.
Yeah, and I think that, I have to agree with you on the point of the structure of the scene, because I think that a guy like Remkoe, with the amount of fucking shit that he's done in his career, so many big, brilliant moments, like Northern Gaming, the Weedem girls side, RLCS 2 finals, RLCS 3 finals, RLCS 6 finals. He's made so many fucking RLCS finals. He is a veteran in every sense of the word. And the idea that he's got nothing to bring to a lower level roster, like that's stupid. That's incredibly stupid, And it's like, that's the reason why I push for more open circuit stuff, because Psyonix have proven they've been unwilling to develop the lower levels of the scene. So let the rest of us do it. Open up the gates for ESL to run an open series. Let fucking DreamHack do more events during the off season, or even during the main season, if you can just allow them to have a bit more flexibility with the calendar. Stuff like that. Stuff like that I think could be so easily done if we just open the barrier to entry just by a little bit. That way guys like Remkoe can come down to the lower levels and find your guys, like your Breezes, like your Ixos, like your Cashes, like your fucking, I don't know who else to bring to talk about, like you guys like from Solari, for instance, Astral Alpha? For instance, Alpha, all these big breakout stars that could be found by guys like Remkoe and molded by guys like Remkoe, because I think that's the next step after you've been at the top, is to help contribute to the next generation. I mean, that's my personal mentality on how we do things from where I'm from. And I think that a lot of the esports infrastructure in general sort of helps helps players to do that. It's certainly in CS:GO, for instance. That's a fucking really big thing about the veterans. They always come in, they always stick around for a few years. Pronax, for example, is currently doing. As you don't know, Pronax is like a 2 to 3 time major champion. He was part of the Fnatic roster that everyone knows from 2015. He was the in-game leader there, and now he's coaching and leading some other teams and players from the lower levels of the tier 2 region to give them the opportunity to potentially go on the rise. And it's like the Rocket League infrastructure does not allow for that for a guy like Remkoe. And I think that it's a damn shame, a real damn shame, to be honest, because when, Rocket League is the core to people's beings, as is case in point by this fucking tweet. And the idea that that's not being, accounted for, and the idea that that's not being, a major thing for him and a major thing for Psyonix as a whole, like, it's a damn shame. It really is a damn shame.
And the biggest shame for me as a fan off the back of that is come next season, because we do expect TSM to drop this current season with their standings. They drop into RLRS like we've seen a lot of RLCS teams off the back of this do, is just break up when you're in the RLRS,
Oh yeah, and the intimation, by the way.
Problem.
The intimation, by the way, is that TSM are not going to go forward with this roster if they do not make it into the next season of the Championship Series. That's exactly what Complexity did. Like they seeing where they're in the state that they're in right now on that TSM camp, considering where they're at in terms of the in terms of the table standings. Like, there's a very high chance they could get relegated. There's a very high chance that TSM could just fuck off. And TSM are another one of those owners like Envy who really push for franchising. So let that speak volumes for the current state of things for them.
And you gotta think, if these players then do disband off the back of that, I reckon that'll be it for Remkoe in Rocket League. And as a fan, that is such a shame. A lad that's been there since season 1, just to, I wouldn't even say gracefully go off into the sunset, because there is no graceful option there.
Well, that is the story of Remkoe for this week. I do hope you're feeling great, man. Again, the line's always open for us. If anything we've said hits you hard, let's talk about it a bit, Anyways, that's going to be it for our news this week. A bit of a shit week, all things considered. There's a really shit note to end on as well. But, we still got a lot of stuff to cover. Obviously, our mailbag segment, which you can contribute to on the Discord, which is in the links to the show notes and video descriptions of every single episode of the podcast. Go ahead and join. Send us a mailbag in the mailbag channel. Also get involved in the prediction game, which we do not have the results for this week once again, but that's kind of a me thing. Let's just leave that up there. So, 2 questions. The first comes in from my boy Dweg, who actually asked this during the live show last week. I asked him to put it in the mailbag because I was like, no, I'm not fucking answering. Just a big old question live in the moment. We've already gone past that part. So, he asks, if Rocket League was to change to 4v4 in competitive play rather than 3v3, what issues would occur, if any? And what would your thoughts be around that? Okay, I'm going to start with you on this one, Bacon. I think this conversation has cropped up before. I think it's been one of that's like a couple years old now. But I think we've all come to the agreement that 4v4 would not be a good idea.
So 4v4 in the current state of Rocket League would not be a good idea. Just straight up, pitches are too small for 4v4. They are very much designed around a 3v3 space, which works okay for 2v2. You can see with 1v1s, there's just a lot of waiting and taking it in turns, which is parts of game mode, but it's fine. But for 4v4, there's too much space covered so that if teams actually had figured it out, there would just be no goals because defense is so easy. So you'd need to somehow, at that same time as just moving over the 4v4, you'd have to increase every single pitch in the game. And then at that point, would it just be too sort of, I'm going to say, boring? More akin to natural football, like actual football over, with cars and that and flying about, purely because it'd be a lot of just one-on-one challenges. A second player is straight up ready there to take it afterwards. You know, passing plays would be a lot easier to intercept because you've got an extra player on the pitch. You've got less worry about throwing a car in the way. I don't think it would work at all.
I mean, in general, just like from level of play, you know, like 4v4 has just always been a clusterfuck. Like it kind of always has been, just because of the way that you're cramming like 8 players into, you know, the very small space that we have in Rocket League. Like, if we were to increase pitch sizes, then sure, but then that would affect the rest of the other gameplays, that the other games that we've sort of like seen, you know, that have been balanced pretty well around 2v2 and 3v3, for instance. I think that, you know, Rocket League is unique in the sense that it is 3v3, and 4v4 and 5v5 have been done to death, but this is the first time we've seen sort of like a major sort of like 3v3 esport, essentially. You know, I think that, you know, because of the way that we've had things work around, you know, the general build of the game works well for all of the game modes, with the exception of 4v4 that we have available. And I think that just adding, like, trying to change the system now and trying to add, you know, trying to add another player to the structure, like, it just fucks around with too much stuff in Rocket League, and we'd have to change so many things in order to get it to work. The same thing with, like, you know, map vetoes and non-standard maps. Like, you know, just fuck that noise. You know, just keep things the way that they are, because it's working is most important.
Yeah, like people always say, "Oh, should bring back the whole randomized maps." In the sense of Tokyo, the original ones. We're past that point now. I am definitely in the camp of, I think that is the best thing for Rocket League, but I accept we're past that point. You know.
I'm not in the camp of it's best for Rocket League. Like, the way that we got, it's working now. Don't fuck with the formula is what I'm going to say.
We're in the 4th year of the game coming up. Like, you know,
no, we're in the 5th year.
There's already
we're in the 5th year.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm. This summer we're coming up to the 5th sort of like marker. You know, so it's just that point of, yeah, it's already set in stone. You don't change it at this point.
Well, there you go. I think the 4v4 conversation was gone and done as easily as that. So thanks again for your question there, Dweg. Jar of Jam comes up, of course, filling in for you last week because you're a sick bitch. He asks, follow up to Velixo's question. Jay and I covered the national qualifier teams for Intel Olympics, but who do you think is going to make it as the 3 European teams from the regional qualifiers? Now, Bacon, I don't know if you caught last week's show, but me and Jam were basically asked, hey, what do you think the teams, the most likely teams are for the national side? So all of those national spots that will be going the way of teams in the Intel World
Japan,
Open.
Africa, well, so yeah, your different regions: Japan, Africa, Asia mainland, Middle East, Latin America, and then ones with an Asia, Maritime, and Oceania, Europe. But the only countries with, you know,
so me and Jam
are Japan. Gone.
Yeah, me and Jam did the countries for the Katowice qualifier. So Oz, Brazil, Canada, China, France, Germany, UK. We did mostly the ones from the European region. So France, Germany, UK. We left out, you know, the SAM and the OCE stuff. But we're also talking about the European qualifiers, is what I think that Jam wants to know. Who do you think could be the 3 teams making it in from the European qualifier? Which I think still, for me, seems like it's a... it still feels like it's like a national sort of sides thing. So again, we haven't got a lot of results to pull from. We can't go in and say, hey, it will be TSM, but TSM, they're, you know, fucking, you know, they're currently a mix of, like, you know, 2 Finnish and 1 Dutch player. You know, like, we can't, you know, use that as an example, for instance. Like, we could potentially say Magnus Metzenaris and another Finnish player, for instance, but I don't think that would work 100%.
The only team that would apply to this in the top tier of Rocket League, so RLCS and RLRS, would be Servette Geneva as an all-Swiss roster. Everyone else is mixed between nationalities that would fit under Europe.
Yeah.
Not including, like, say, Baguette Squad from France or all that, because France already has a qualified spot, as a country.
Yeah. Like, this is very much a speculative sort of thing, in terms of, like, where we think that we think the teams could go, how we think the players, how we think the teams will form up. Like, we could go on for fucking hours about this. So it's, like, way too big of a question, I think, to answer, because there literally could be infinite possibilities.
Let's throw one country with one team in each. We can do one, I think, and I'm going to say the easy two there are going to be Spain and Netherlands.
Yeah, with the number of players, with the number of players that we have in those sort of scenes, and with the way that with the mixes up that comes through, and with the mixes up that can come through, I think, Spain and Netherlands should have like a decent set of combinations and should be represented pretty well in the European qualifier. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised they didn't have their own individual sort of like countries for this thing, considering the number of teams and players that have been at the top or had decent representation. It's kind of surprising to me. So, especially when you've got like things like China, for instance, having its own individual qualifier, whereas those that scene has been completely underrepresented along with the rest of Asia as a whole. So I'm at this point I'm fucking rambling, so we'll just leave it at that.
That comes down to the Olympic sort of aspect to it, and it's like very heavily trying to promote Asian esports. Like part of if I don't know if you saw this, but part of the Asian martial arts competition going on in 2021, I think. So that's like all karate, judo, all that sort of shit. They actually added an event under esports, and it is just esports. They haven't even announced what game, whatever yet. And that's part of just how everyone knows that the Intel World Open is a tag on to the Olympics, but considering it's done by ESL, it's going to be done right. And this is sort of like a big opportunity to thrust esports as not just a generic term, but actually these are the games. And there is a massive difference between Street Fighter and Rocket League. But back to the topic at hand.
Yeah, back to the topic at hand. If we were to look at these
countries, just like I said, Spain, let's just say Nachital, Stake, and Zamwe, 2 parts RCD Espanol, and then 1 endpoint. I think that's a fairly solid team to throw forward for that. And then over for Netherlands, it's got to be Tars Matane already, and throw on something like Though in the mix there. So you got 2 parts Notorious Legion, 1 part Singularity. That would be an absolute killer roster. But I know definitely within the Benelux region, with Netherlands, Belgium, all of that sort of lot, there is some drama with how those teams were so heavily competitive with each other. Shouldn't be any problems with those guys though.
Yeah, we'll reserve the right to remain on that particular front, but we'll see how well the qualifiers go. At this point, it really is too hot up in the air. Like, we could do speculation for fucking weeks, I think, and we probably will be doing speculation.
We'll do rankings when we get the confirmed teams and do all the qualifiers, like who we think will go through. I think that'd be fun, but considering we don't even know how these teams are going to form up because it is all completely in the air and new for Rocket League, there's no point saying which teams because we don't know them.
Exactly. So we'll just leave that there for the moment. Thank you again for your questions, Heather, Dweg, and Jam. And again, if you want to get involved, the exclamation mark Discord, we're not doing this one live. But no, the Discord links are in the show notes and video descriptions of every single episode of the podcast. Click it, follow it, go to the Mailbag channel and type your question or send your query, send your topic of discussion to us. And chances are we'll answer it live on an episode of RLAfterShock. Right. Let's get to our results. It wasn't just a massive week for the news or for the doubleheader RLCS, it was a massive week for the European Invitational as well, which was announced last week, kicked off on the same day that we broke the story or reported on it from the RLAfterShock podcast. But here we are with the first week, or sort of week done. I mean, we're still having matches like day in and day out. It seems to be on whenever the RLCS is not on. So in that respect, like the next match is set to start in about an hour and a half as of us recording this. So if you I wonder why we haven't got the TSM, ASM results or anything else from outside of the rest of the group stage, that's the reason why we haven't got it on this episode. So Let's just run through the group stages very, very quickly because the majority of matches have sort of already ticked by. We've had from Group A, Dignitas beating ASM 3-1, Notorious Legion beating TSM and Dignitas in their follow-up matches from 3-0 and 3-2 respectively. And then they went on to beat AS Monaco as well at 3-2. So Notorious Legion currently sitting at the top of their group. Meanwhile, in Group B, Sandrock have taken the top position by beating out the WeDem Girls and Singularity side. Still yet to face Reno Vitality, so that position could be under siege. But WeDem Girls also faced Reno Vitality, got swamped 3-0. And they also saw Reno Vitality take on Singularity, where Singularity actually won against the French side. In Group C, Veloce have topped out their group and they cannot be dethroned. They faced off against FC Barcelona, Servette Geneva, and FC Barcelona and Endpoint, and already beat them 3-1 and 3-0 respectively. FCB defeated Servette Geneva at 3-2 in a very, very tight little near reverse sweep situation, and Endpoint beat Servette Geneva also at 3-2. And then in Group D, RCD Espanyol beat Triple Trouble 3-2. Mousesports lost to Triple Trouble at 3-0, and then they beat Reciprocity to follow up at 3-1. RCD also beat Reciprocity to round out the group stage results as thus far. So let's start with that Notorious Legion results. Notorious Legion and RCD, let's lump them in together. But Notorious Legion in particular have already finished all their matches, and they went 3-0. Now, caveats aside, TSM and AS Monaco not being in the best of shapes right now, they did manage to beat Dignitas. That's pretty fucking good, I'm not going to lie.
Right, let's just put this as what it is. Notorious Legion were in a group where they were the only RLRS team, and they beat all the RLCS team. Like you said, caveat, it is TSM and AS Monaco, but that still counts as they're punching above their on paper weight, aren't they? And they did it quite handily. Their only problem, literally, like AS Monaco actually did show up for that game, and it was quite a decent one. But the Dignitas game, that is a beautiful feast for the eyes, that one.
Yeah, I know. That was a pretty insane little back and forth affair. I mean, it went to 2 overtimes in the last 2 games. And there were a lot of goals being scored. Like, Notorious Legion really stepped up to the fold. And I know that in the last couple of weeks you said, hey, they might be a bit over that. I might be overhyping them a little bit. Honestly, now, I'm all aboard the hype train. I'm all aboard it now. I'm a Notorious Legion fanboy. This team have got a lot going for them right now. I think that they could promote very easily into next season of the RLCS. Like, they're having a real good fucking time here, and these results are just awesome for them. And backing them up, obviously, is RCD Espanyol, the team that are currently in first place of the rival series, having a really good set of matches against some RLCS teams. In particular, they're beating the Triple Trouble side and beating Reciprocity as well. We've got a bit of a talking point about Reciprocity coming up, but with Mousesports set to face them a little bit later on today, Bacon, like, what do we think about RCD, and what do we think about whether they can actually go the full 3-0 distance and get 2 teams from the rival series into the playoffs?
Well, I'm just thinking now, throughout all official Psionic sanctioned events, RCD are unbeaten this year. Can we just take that into account?
That's not fair.
Yes,
That's not fair. That's not fair.
They did lose out in the I can't remember the name for it, from the Super Swiss Rocket Rail. That's the one. And of course the skirmish. But we have to say that is an incredible feat so far. But at the same time, just the one against Triple Trouble shows that's going to be a nice rivalry as time goes on, I think, because Triple Trouble, unfortunately, have received the worst end of the stick throughout, the RLRS as well. But that was such a great game. But then going up against Reciprocity, oh, baby. Reciprocity so far this season have just looked quite okay. And it shows just how good RCD Espanyol are, that they can come in every single series, they just look to be swinging at the moment. This, for me, has to be such a massive up period that it brings back hints to, Savage and Triple Trouble back in the day, where they just seemed unbeatable, even though they were from the RLRS. And it's crazy to see that now. When coming into the season, Jay, I don't think anyone was expecting a massive standout team, let alone 2 with Notorious Legion.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is a big surprise for me personally. You know, I mean, we as you mentioned, you know, like there's no big sort of like, you know, big name roster that we thought would be able to easily take control. There's no Savage this season. You know, there was no AS Monaco this season. You know, there's none of those sort of sides where it's like, okay, these guys are shoo-ins to get the next spot in the championship series.
Trouble.
Yeah, Triple Trouble and We Girls. You know, those are the two teams that we expected to do well, but like I didn't think we expected them to do amazingly well by comparison. And you know, the RCD and Notorious Legion, I think they've superseded all expected results, especially in the RCD camp. Like, you know, there's no stopping these guys, it seems. And they're probably going to go through to the playoffs as a result. Notorious Legion most definitely are going through those playoffs as a result. RCD still have to play one more matchup before they confirm it, and even if they can confirm it, Reciprocity versus Triple Trouble probably could still confirm it regardless anyway. So we'll see how well that will work out for them. But we'll move on.
Ooh.
Go on.
Quick note. Just because how things go, Espanyol still has a chance to not make it through to the next stage because they go up against Mousesports later on today as of this recording. And if they lose there and Triple Trouble win, then RCD Espanyol will drop down. But that's purely because Reciprocity shat the bed in the Invitational.
That is true. We'll come to Reciprocity in a minute, though. I do want to move on and talk about the Sandrock side, a team that everyone sort of thought, hey, this is going to be a token sort of inclusion because of the fact that obviously their sponsor is also the owner of Sandrock Gaming, for those of you who might not be aware. And they came in, obviously being the representatives of the Saudi Arabia sort of like Middle Eastern scene. Mm-hmm. And they've come in so far with a 2-0 record in Group B. They managed to beat We Dem Girls in Singularity, which is also impressive. But I don't think that these are quite as impressive as the Notorious Legion results or the RCD Espanyol results, just because they are We Dem Girls in Singularity. Now, Reno Vitality is coming up in tomorrow's matches for the Invitational. So, like, you know, caveats there, you know, they still haven't faced the biggest sort of threat that they can in this group stage. That's part of the reason why I'm sort of thinking, hey, it might not be as amazing as they might think.
So I'm just got to say, massive big dick NG coming into this one to put down the money to essentially, like, yes, it's a good credit to the whole European scene because everyone's been wanting this, but you can also see this as this is what the Middle East can do by putting your team on up against the very top of the entire European region. That you have to look at it from that perspective as well, Jay. And looking at this, they've taken Sandrock Gaming have taken down We Dem Girls, which is a very, I don't want to say established side, but a formidable side when you look at it. And then also Singularity up in the RLCS, who have been doing very well themselves. Like, all things considered, they look to be trying to snatch that 6th, 7th spot. You have to give them credit for that. They have been, don't get me wrong, it's very close games. But Sandrock are legit. That's how you've got to look at it, right?
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying they're not legit. I'm just saying that the results so far have not been as impressive. And I mean, you know, obviously, I'm going to give them, you know, I'm going to give them a little bit extra scrutiny just because of the conflict of interest that's here. You know, they've got a sponsor who has funded this tournament, and as a result, this team is going to be in that tournament here. So there's going to be scrutiny.
The girls have not looked good throughout the entire.
That too, as well. Yeah, they've gone 0-2. They fair play to Reno Vitality. Obviously, that's a 3-0 easy for them. But you know, if you was to give me the analysis of this match, I would have put We Dem Girls to go above Sandrock Gaming. And even then, both of the Sandrock results have been 3-2s. So they've nearly lost to both of those sides to me versus, you know, Notorious Legion, who are very good against TSM and very, very good against ASM. You know, they had the close shave against Dignitas, for instance, which obviously makes sense because it's Dig. But, you know, they still managed the 3-0 and they've had like a decent game difference to the point where they will be guaranteed a spot in the playoffs versus Sandrock, who are still scraping by, and there's still a chance that if they lose to Vitality, they couldn't get through this group stage. You know, it's a great start for the Middle Eastern team, but you know, I mean, it's not wowing me in the same sort of way.
No. So the thing is, with this Group B, the massive caveat is that everyone has played poor. That's just the group. It happens every now and then. Like I said, We Dem Girls have played shit. SMG have played okay. We've seen them play better in the RLCS. They played okay. It got them a win against Vitality, who I think have been playing the absolute worst to, like, you know, their average level. They've just been playing absolutely off, and that's including a 3-0 win to WDM girls, but that was fucking scraping it completely. I mean, all three of those games, if I remember right, went to OT, and lost against S&G, which let's just say they should not be losing to S&G. I know they did it back in week 2 and they lost, but did they look good then? No, Alpha did not fit into that team yet. And so they don't have that excuse anymore, how far we're in with 5 weeks into the RLCS. And of course, they've now got the experience with the Invitational in there. So coming into, it's going to be played tomorrow as of this recording against Sandrock. Vitality should smack Sandrock because, I mean, spoilers for later, how they've been playing this past weekend in the RLCS, they should have clicked now. If they don't, then there is problems with Vitality, with consistency, and that is a different factor for us to talk about. Sandrock, they're doing their job, and it's good to see a team near enough come straight out of the blue and be a competitor, because that's always exciting.
Yeah, I mean, every single day. But, we'll see how well Sandrock will do against Renault Vitality. I'm still not 100% convinced yet, but we'll see how well it will go. We'll move on, however, and talk about Servette and WDM girls next, because, they have gone out of their groups in last place, and probably won't be able to recover this unless they get some miracle sort of results against Singularity and Veloce, respectively. This is actually some decent performances, especially from the Servette Geneva camp. Like, WDM girls expectedly got smacked by Renault Vitality, but they got 3-2 against Sandrock Gaming, which, considering the fact that, they've also been able to beat Singularity, is also a pretty decent affair for WDM girls, and going up against Singularity later might be a fun little match. But for Servette Geneva especially, finally this team is starting to look decent. Not quite RLCS level, but certainly the level that I hope they'd be at for this season. They got a 3-2 loss against FCB, and they also got a 3-2 loss against Endpoint, which aren't too terrible. They held their own. They tried to hold on for a little bit of time, and they even got a couple of overtimes out of FCB. They got to match point against Endpoint as well. So they were in a pretty decent spot for both of those matches, even though they lost. And for WDM girls, even though they lost to Renault Vitality, they had 3 big, long fucking overtimes. WDM girls, both these teams are finally starting to look like actual, legitimate forces here. Is this just, however, and this is something I kind of wanted to lead into the next topic with, is this just sort of like teams not taking this tournament too seriously because it's only $20,000 and because it's not the RLCS?
So I think it's not necessarily a case of seriousness to it. It's mindsets, the difference between RLCS and, this other tournament. So I guess I'm rephrasing what you just asked in a weird sense, but it's there, it's not as black and white as that. And it seems very weird because Servette Geneva have been playing incredible in the Invitational. We have to give it to them on that. The other teams have looked so inconsistent, and that seems to be, for me, going up against a team like Servette Geneva, where they haven't been able to put the planning in, and it's going up against a team they don't know and have never played. They question themselves and look really uncertain. And again, that's just a weird area to get into, because you look against, yes, Servette Geneva lost to FCB, but FCB are playing fantastic in the RLCS at the moment. Endpoint as well, who have been hitting fairly okay in the RLCS, coming up against Servette Geneva, just were not ready coming straight out of the gate. They went for that 5-minute OT, were able to hit back, but then they just kept getting caught really off guard by Servette Geneva, which made it really close and interesting series there. For me, I think it's just teams are not ready for new talent, new ways of playing, and just teams they're not used to coming through.
Possibly. Obviously, it's part of the reason why we say we want to see more bleed over, but not a lot of bleed over, but a little bit more bleed over between the two scenes. But I mean, for right now, the outlook for WDM girls and Servette Geneva is obviously a bit more positive. Is this something that hopefully should reflect in the rival series going forward from here, or? I
don't know. I would say Servette Geneva's rival series is already done. They're out. I think it's past redemption right now. They've got 3 more games. They would have to win all 3 of them. And I mean, again, spoilers for later. They got RCD, Espanyol, Vertex, possible, and Notorious Legion. I'm just saying, against RCD and Notorious Legion, you wouldn't expect it. But you got to look at Servette Geneva. We've said about their inconsistency, and you've just got to be going to these lads. You three fucking stick together for next season, because we can see there is so much potential being able to go up against, RLCS teams like they have done here in the Invitational, when you can go, this is proof about what we've been saying of how there needs to be a bigger system to Rocket League from Psyonix, because if there was, Servette Geneva would be a tier 2 so solid in there,
We'll see how well they'll cope going forward, but for now, it's a good set of results from Servette and We Dem Goals. Reciprocity, though, not so much. And this is the other point I wanted to make about them not taking it too seriously, because they got fucking trounced. Absolutely trounced by Mousesports and RCD. And I'm starting to feel like that this team, this slump that they're in, is a lot worse than what we initially expected. They're getting a couple of good results in for the RLCS, but for the most part, it's just the expected results for them. They're barely holding into that top 6 position. And in the context of this particular tournament, smashed out by Mousesports, okay, fair enough. But losing to RCD Espanol, I would have pitted Reciprocity above them. I would have thought it would have been a close series, but this one wasn't even that close, 3-1, and not the 3-2 that I would have put, for a match like this. So Reciprocity, there are some serious problems going on there. And I don't think they can make it out of the group stage unless some really lucky results happen for them. All of their fate in this tournament is not in their hands.
Oh, Reciprocity by all accounts for me, Jay. I'm just going to quickly look at how it could be done now. I see no hope. It is literally Mousesports lose to RCD and they beat Triple Trouble 3-0 or something like that. That's how Reciprocity get through. That's not going to happen. Reciprocity seem to have lost all drive. You know what I mean? Talking about RLCS, looking into this as well. They just don't seem to have any passion anymore, if that makes sense, which is so peculiar for me. The lads are so driven. You can see after, Valencia, they were like, this is our time to really explode. They go to Worlds, and I don't think they've got over whatever hit them hard there beforehand, because this is a team that is deflated. And I mean, after Worlds, we said, okay, they're going to be sticking together for another season, but if they don't fit, if it doesn't get fixed, they're going to be looking for a roster move. And I keep looking at it now and go, there has to be something to rejuvenate this team, because right now they are so down in the dumps.
Yeah, and I'm starting to re-question my initial sort of loyalties to the idea of this team sticking together, because right now things are not working, and I feel like a roster change might be on the horizon. The question now is, for me, who is that roster change gonna be affecting? Who's gonna be the player that gets dropped? Because the fucking, I'm still trying to question how they can improve this team with a roster change, but it feels like there's no other way out at this point. This team, as you mentioned, something's got to change in terms of the mentality game and in terms of the familiarity, because as you say, there is no drive to play Rocket League at the top end anymore for these guys. It's just not fucking on anymore, and we're seeing these issues. We're seeing these issues crop up in small tournaments and big tournaments, and Reciprocity are not the team that we saw summer last year. They are not the team that won. They are not the PSG that won over in Valencia. They are not the team that contested at the summit. This is just not where we hoped it would be for them. And yeah, I don't know where they go from here. I really don't. I realize this is a small online tournament. It's not a big sort of deal. But remember, before, when they were, not able to win LANs, they were winning tournaments like the European Invitational. So to see them not be able to do so, what hope is there left for this squad?
I do not envy Yummy Cheese Man at the moment. Their coach.
Oh yeah, no.
What because I can't think this is a more tactical problem with the team. Is completely what is going on in their heads on the pitch. And right now he's got to be looking at it and going, they just brought in this coach and they've got worse. Is that on him? No, it's clearly not. And that all just comes down to what the fuck is going on in the mental aspect, what is going on in their comms, what is going on with the chemistry of this team right now.
I have no idea. It
just feels bad, man.
Yeah, well, we'll see how well they'll cope going forward. But for their time in the TEI, it seems like it's almost over. So best of luck going forward, boys, but because you're going to need it at this point. Right, let's move on to the rival series. Week 4 has now come and gone, and we have the results in from the best of the second-tier divisions. We'll run through those very quickly. Weedham Girls losing to Notorious Legion 3-0, so another big win on the board for them. BDS managing to beat BGS at 3-0, also the same on the sweep. RCD struggling against Vertex, but getting their win at 3-2, and Solari beating Servette Geneva at 3-0. So a lot of sweeps on the board for the mainstream. The second stream looking a little bit more confident, but still another sweep for BDS against Servette Geneva, 3-0. Notorious Legion beat Baguette Squad 3-1, and RCD struggled but do manage to win over RJM at 3-2. Leaving your standings as RCD Espanyol still undefeated, 5-0 on the board for the Spaniards. BDS trailing behind that second place at 4-1. Solari there at 4-2. Notorious Legion is sitting in the 4th position at 3-2. RJM also at 3-2, and Triple Trouble at 2-2, with about a 3-game difference between RJM and Notorious Legion there. In the bottom 4 in order from 7th through 10th, we've got Weedham Girls, Team Vertex, Servette Geneva, and Baguette Squad. Let's start again with Northern Legion Esports. Sorry, Notorious Legion Esports and RCD Espanyol. 2 more big wins this week for them. But for RCD, like, it's a little bit weird for them because, like, while Notorious Legion are getting the confident results against Weedham Girls, RCD is struggling against Vertex and RJM. Now, I would personally rate Weedham Girls above them, but even then, you also got to consider that they're also in the bottom 4. So, maybe I'm just completely wrong on my analysis. But is it me, or are RCD looking a little bit less impressive than the team that are currently in 4th position?
Oh, you're completely correct. RCD half-assed this week. They only put in, I would argue, with the performances from Vertex and RGM, they put in a mere 20% of what they could actually do. Like, they purely just wrote their name on the test, handed it in, and somehow got a better grade than Vertex and RJM. It was so bad. I was casting that RCD versus RJM game, and it probably came through in the broadcast, but that was shite. It was a game 5, which no one wanted to go to game 5 purely because it was that bad. And you compare that to Notorious Legion, that game against Baguette Squad, for example, was one of my funnest casts I have had in a long, long time, like in the last year. And the same, you could watch that one against Weedham Girls in the first game. Notorious Legion are having a cracking good time. They're putting on they are the funnest team to watch at the moment within Rocket League. And like you said, they were going up against 2 teams that did not slump this week. That 3-0 against Weedham Girls was super close. The one against Baguette Squad looked a little bit deflated at the start, but they started swinging hard in game 3. Really coming on back, and it feels almost like Notorious Legion had to work for their wins. RCD were just handed them because their opponents were not able to show up, and they merely took it all the way because they didn't have to do anymore.
Yeah, I mean, right now RCD are still sitting at 5-0. I think they're probably guaranteed for top 3 at least at this stage. Not quite actually.
That secures them definitely for top 6 their next season.
Okay, but I'm taking a look at some of these results from RCD, and it's like, if they don't start pulling their socks up, could we see them potentially be losing out a position for promotion? Because this could be another situation where, hey, they promote back in from the play-ins from the last season where they had a bit of a disaster run, and then they could potentially be back in with a chance to auto-promote unless they step things up. And it's like, with Notorious Legion coming in next week as well for RCD Espanyol, is there reason to be worried for this side?
So I'm just quickly going to check who RCD need to go up against.
They've got Notorious Legion next week, BDS and Servette Geneva the week after, and then the final week is Baguette Squad.
So basically one more win out of that lot secures them promotion, a top 3 finish, No, that is it. So yeah, if they get 6 wins, they'll probably be secure, and that's purely because of how the middle of the bracket is. When you've got Notorious Legion on 3, RGM on 3, Triple Trouble, and Weedham Girls on 2. There's a possibility for Vertex to turn it around, but they've got hard opponents coming up in Notorious Legion and RCD Espanyol, I do believe is one. No, they've already faced them. BDS, sorry. Yeah, RCD Espanyol, just by looking at all those chances, the teams that got left, they should be safe for a top 3 finish right now. Like I said, they are definitely safe for staying in for next season. They're going to get a top 6 finish, but they are 1 win away from being top 3 right now. And that's crazy. The problem is I could see them going for the perfect season here, Jay.
It all comes down to this next week's result, though, because Notorious Legion, I think, possibly could be their biggest threat. Like, you know, based on the way that they're playing, based on how they're having a great time right now. The RCD, go on.
So, right here, they've got Notorious Legion this coming week, and then the week after, they've got BDS. RCD would have to lose both those games to drop top spot. Put it that way. That's a big ask. And still then, Notorious Legion would be behind BDS for trying to take away that top spot. You know? BDS, beat RCD in, next week. They then take the top spot away, but that's going to be hard because BDS still has, you know, a couple. I think they've only got one tough opponent, if I'm correct, apart from RCD, and that is Triple Trouble coming up. So... crazy stuff.
Well, we'll have to see how well they'll hold their own in that next week's matchup. I think that probably will be end up being our highlight one, but we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that a little bit later. For now, though, I did want to swing on to BDS because I said this team wasn't going to do anything this season. I thought that they've been past it. Obviously, it's being the former ARG side. They've kind of stagnated a little bit, but this season coming in, it's clear they've been doing some practicing because they've had some really fucking awesome results. You know, they beat Baguette Squad pretty easy. They beat Servette Geneva pretty easy, which this week has been, you know, a pretty easy affair, but considering that they're only a single series behind RCD Espanyol, and actually they're up in terms of the game difference, if RCD do lose next week and BDS manage to take their win against RJM, there's a chance they could still steal that top spot away. You know, BDS are actually in a pretty decent spot, all things considered, and they've been very, very consistent as of late.
Yeah, and that's interesting because week 1, BDS did not show up. They, went to game 5 against Weedham Girls, but it was a shit series, realistically. All things speaking, Weedham Girls was still very incoherent and still are to this day. But BDS, really, they must have gone away from that and put in serious work. They crammed for a week, you know? Come back after that, they then took down Solaris, if I am correct, and that was a great series there going on forward. They took down the team, they took down Notorious Legion, which is a feat in its own. They then went on to face off against Baguette Squad and absolutely smash them, smash Servette Geneva. And now they look completely reformed from that week 1 where even after that week 1, we were right in our predictions going, oh yeah, this is going to be a team that's just going to bottom out because they haven't put the work in. They realized they didn't put the work in and crammed for a week, which is so commendable and shows that for some teams, all might look lost, but if you put the work in, you can redeem yourself.
Yeah, and you know they've certainly redeemed themselves this season. Again, I'm happy to eat that humble pie, to be honest, because BDS have fucking have served it up to be on a silver plate. You know they're looking really good. The only team that could contest them is Solari at this stage because they're also being 2 series behind the BDS side, and they've played more series, admittedly. But you know BDS, I think, given a couple of good circumstances, could potentially claim that top spot. And it all comes down to again how well they're going to compete against the teams next week, because I think that their challenges are still ahead of them here. They've got RJM next week. After that, they have the RCD side one more time, so that could be an opportunity for them. They've got Vertex easy as playing Triple Trouble in the last week of the league. So there's still a lot for me to be proven on that particular respect, but so far it's been looking pretty good, Bacon, and I think that's about enough to wrap things up on the rival series for this past week. However, next week we got our predictions to make. Triple Trouble taking on RJM for the first match of the mainstream. Baguette Squad taking on the Weedham Girls side. RCD facing off against Notorious Legion Esports. Vertex versus Servette Geneva. And on the B stream, we've got 4 series. Baguette Squad versus Solari. Vertex versus Notorious Legion. BDS versus RJM. And Triple Trouble versus Weedham Girls. I already know which one you're going to pick as the highlight match of the week. It's the RCD versus Notorious Legion match. But honorable mentions?
For me, it's got to be Triple Trouble versus Weedham Girls. Jay, the reason why, at the moment, it's feeling like only one of those 2 teams is going to make top 6, you know?
Yeah, a lot of weight going into that one. And for two teams that we expected to do well in this championship and in this season, might be a fun little grudge match almost, and survival match as well. But let's go from predictions top to bottom. Who you got?
So straight off the top, Triple Trouble, I think are going to take down RJM. That'd be like a 3-1, 3-2 affair. Following that, I'm going to say it's going to get even tastier with Baguette Squad getting their first win. They've really stepped it on up recently.
You think they're going to beat Weedham Girls?
I think Weedham Girls are looking shaky. They're so inconsistent. And it's more just because it creates drama, which is great. You'll see later on.
You don't base your predictions on any fucking analysis. You just say, hey, what's the best story? Come on.
Look, come on. It works. Like, we know that prediction game going on. But yeah, after that, RCD take down Notorious Legion 3-2. That is going to be such a good series. Following that, I'm just going to back the Servette Geneva boys here just because I want to. This is completely biased, but let's say 3-1 Servette Geneva. Probably very doubtful on that one, but let's just do it. Into the battle of the Frenchies, I want Solaris to take this. Let's say 3-1. Notorious Legion smash Vertex 3-0. BDS smash RGM 3-0. And then Weedham Girls beat Triple Trouble.
So you've got Weedham Girls losing to Baguette Squad, the team in last place, and then you've got them beating Triple Trouble, the team that are one spot ahead of them.
Yep.
What? Fuck off. No way.
Like I said, I just want drama this season because half of it has just been so boring. But I think we're coming into the last part is going to be so delectable. It's going to be beautiful coming into these last 3 weeks.
Well, I've got Triple Trouble above RJM to start things off. I'm going to go 3-2 on that one. I've got Weedham Girls going above Baguette Squad 3-1. Fuck you, Bacon. Notorious Legion RCD.
I don't have anything against Weedham Girls. I'm just saying it will create drama and it will be fun to watch.
No, that's the reason why I don't like it. I don't think you've got anything against Weedham Girls. I have a thing against you making those shit predictions based off of nothing. Right? You just say, oh, it will make more drama, therefore that's the way I think it's going to go. No.
Are you going to say sorry next week when Weedham Girls drop to Baguette Squad?
What? No, fuck you. If that happens, then fair play to them. There's a good reason for it, but that's none of the reasons why you have actually stated here in this fucking podcast. No, shut up. Notorious Legion, I'm going to say they're going to go above RCD at 3-2. It'll be a fun little matchup. And yeah, I've got...
I respect that.
I've got... It'll be fucking close, right? Let's be real. That one should be a real fucking fun one. And I've got Servette Geneva going above Vertex by 3-1. I think that Vertex probably will end up falling down to the Servette side just because they've shown a few more, a few more teeth in the invitational. I think the real thing for them really will be a case of trying to follow through off the back of that online tournament and translate into the rival series. And then for the second stream, I've got Solari above Baguette Squad, smash 3-0. Notorious Legion above Vertex, smash 3-0. BDS above RJM, 3-1 for BDS. And then for TT versus Weedham Girls, that's a fucking tough one. That's really difficult to predict. So I think the Triple Trouble have a better basis for their own... for their team setup, but Weedham Girls have Exo and Breezy. And I think on that, that's the thing, right? It's a case of Exo and Breezy versus Bluey, essentially. And I think that because of the team combination of Triple Trouble being a little bit better compared to Weedham Girls, I'm going to go TT 3-2.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's how you make a prediction, by the way. Nothing to do with fucking drama or story. No, it's all about mechanics, you cunt.
Oh, the drama and story is Baguette Squad. I think Weedham Girls are going to take it purely against Triple Trouble because they would have had to smack up the arse after, doing so shite in the Invitational, and they're gone, okay, we've got to really hit back now. Probably a little overconfident going up against Baguette Squad, but they would have planned out for Triple Trouble. That's my thinking.
Well, that's your RLCS for this... RLRS, excuse me, for this week. RLCS for this past 1 week, however, it was a very different story because it was a double header, or the double week thing. I realised that makes no fucking sense.
Week we had as well.
Yes.
That's it.
Both week 5 and week 6 were thrown together into one big fucking weekend of matches. We had a lot going on. Again, we didn't catch all of it just because there was so much to go through. But we'll run through the results for you real quick. Singularity beat TSM 3-2 up. And then we move on to Veloce beating AS Monaco 3-1 up. Reciprocity beating Endpoint 3-1 up. Mousesports beating TSM 3-1. Dignitas scraping by against FCB, a 3-2 back and forth affair, with Renault Vitality also closing out the day, beating Reciprocity at 3-1 all the same. And then round 6 on week 6 on day 2 of the past gone week, FC Barcelona 3-2 against Singularity. TSM lost to Endpoint in a 3-0 fashion. Mousesports swept Veloce out the server 3-0 all the same. Reciprocity beat AS Monaco. And Renault Vitality going over Dignitas 3-2 in the last game of the week. A full-on reverse sweep as well, we should add. It was fucking hype, leaving your current standings as Renault Vitality top of the table, 6-1 above Dignitas, 5-1. Veloce at 5-2 go to the third position. Mousesports tied up with FC Barcelona at 4-2 between those two, but Mousesports edging the game difference by 2 games. Reciprocity holding in the top 6 only at 4-3, and Point at 2-4, however, will not be in a position to contend against them. They're in the 7th position. Singularity and TSM in 8th and 9th at 2-5 and 1-6 respectively, and AS Monaco still yet to get a win on the board, 0-7 for their season. Let's start with, well, I mean, I guess you could start just by saying that most of the results were pretty expected, to be honest, Bacon. Like, you know, it was a standard couple of weeks. You know, I think a lot of people got really hyped up about the fact that it was obviously the 2 match days in one weekend sort of thing. And while it felt like there was a lot of Rocket League, a lot of it was sort of standard. You know, a lot of the basic results went in the way of the teams that we saw, to be honest.
I think, yeah, with prediction games, like, everyone would have got the points for which team to win. Maybe not the score lines, but who to win is pretty much what anyone would predict. Maybe, I'm going to say, not that lot. Maybe not with the week 6 games with Mouse beating out Veloce. I know a lot of people are Veloce fans and might pick them over Mouse with Mouse's current form. And then, of course, Dig being undefeated so far through, they might have thought, oh, Dig are going to take it. You know, that the redemption for last Worlds. That's the only things that might go against, and even then that's a slim one, ain't it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It was just kind of a bit standard for me, so leave it where it is. Dignitas, however, they had a bit of a week ahead of them, so we'll talk about them to start things off. They had a close shave against FC Barcelona. Now, last week, me and Jan were talking a little bit about this FC Barcelona team, and I think we mentioned it also in private conversation, Bacon, that this squad now looks a bit more legit. You know, this is awesome. Like, this is a really good match.
It's clear that Bluey was the problem. Because Flakes is doing the exact same fucking job, but not cutting up his teammates.
Yeah, and as well as that, like I just think that the development for FC Barcelona has also, you know, gone pretty far in terms of the team play aspect, because like now this team looks like a team. You know, they don't look like 3 strikers hoping for the best. And this series against Dignitas proved it. You know, it was so back and forth, so well coordinated, so well fought from their side. They didn't, you know, make the best of the situation. Obviously, not getting the win on the board, and it was a bit of a shaky start in the first game. But in the end, a single goal difference for games 1, 4, and 5. You know, FC Barcelona losing by a single goal. Like, this easily could have turned the other way if they were a little bit more careful. Like, you know, Dignitas, they got by on a scrape on this one, you know, and FC Barcelona, it wasn't because of anything that Dignitas were doing wrong. FC Barcelona just evolved in a new way, you know, and it kind of confuses me as well, because FC Barcelona fans and, you know, Bluey fans in particular have recently tried to argue that, you know, it wasn't the case, that this new FC Barcelona are, you know, legit. And it's like, you know, no, they're fucking awesome. They're really awesome. Like, this is such a good sort of such a good sort of roster move, and such a good sort of roster in general. Like, I'm excited for the future for this team.
So I'm going to put this out there that it's an interesting one, because this team can be, like you said, it's because they're not just all strikers. This team is covering all aspects of the pitch that they need to. and their rotations are so much more solid. They're being a proper 3-man team. You'll notice that in week 4, where Devo had that incredible moment of, what was it, like 10 saves or something like that? Everyone was shouting about. I think that was against Reciprocity, if I remember right. I'm going to quickly pop that up now. Yeah, it was. Yeah, Devo against Reciprocity was averaging 5 saves a game. Within game 3, he got 10 saves in that game alone. Now, they beat out Reciprocity, all good. But you notice again in week 5 and week 6, he averaged out the lowest amount of saves in his team. That's a massive change up. Just straight up. He went from averaging 5 saves a game to something like 1.6 and being the lowest on his side. And it's all because just naturally against that Rec team, he fell like Reciprocity when they were attacking was just when Devo was in the rotation. Come up against Dignitas and Singularity, he wasn't in that position, and his teammates quite often got a lot. It purely came down to Reciprocity trying to hammer home against Devo, and he weren't allowing the ball through. So they don't have a dedicated defender, which is very interesting in this team, but they don't have a dedicated striker. You'll notice that by the number of shots, the number of goals that each player on FCB is getting at the moment. And it shows this team is in a great camp. The only point I can put about that is just how very Ronicky has got some good assists. He's got a lot of saves as well coming out so far. But the rest of FCB, even though being very they're doing quite well within the standings, haven't got many accolades to themselves, and it's because their points, their score, their saves, all of that is spread out amongst all 3 players, which you are not seeing really in any other team at the moment.
Yeah, and they're playing a bit more of bounce style. I know that Devo was sort of trying to take a bit more of a save sort of a saving defensive sort of thing, and I think that honestly, that's the best sort of role for him in the context of this in the context of this roster. But they're all contributing where they need to contribute. And again, that Ronicky Flakes combination on the strike is just fucking beautiful. I love it. I am so in love with the way that FC Barcelona are playing at the moment, and yeah, I mean, I'm fucking looking forward to the next game that they've got, to be honest. There's not much else I can say other than reiterating the points that I mentioned last week. They are just really, really good. And I could see them contending. I could see them contending for the top position. I know that they've still got a little bit of a ways to go because they're still in the middle of the table rather than going all the way up. But I think that, just a couple of refinements, a couple of, practice routines and working on working on sort of streamlining, I think. Streamlining this whole team formation is what's going to allow FC Barcelona to go to the next level. And for the first time in a long time, I've had faith in this team being a top-tier team, Bacon. We've always talked about FC Barcelona and Savage being sort of hey, they're based off firepower. They won't make it any further than promoting out the rival series. Well, now the narrative has changed. This is actually good.
The only thing is that at the start of the season, I didn't predict Barcelona to do well at all, just because you thought there would be loads of underlying predictions. But now you predict them to go to Worlds, if there was a Worlds. But exactly. You think they're going to do well at regionals. They're definitely easier top 4 team at the moment, largely because Reciprocity dropping off. But you look at against everyone else there. Against Mouse, I'd probably pick Barca to win. Against Veloce, I'd probably pick Barca to win right now. So it's good shit.
Indeed, it is a good shit. One that stinks of glory and stuff. Anyways, let's move on. That was really disgusting. That was disgusting. Yep. I apologize. Let's move on and talk.
Sorry, I'm just going to quickly say as well, me saying about Barca beating out Veloce. They did beat Veloce back in week 1. Massive change up now. But we'll go see them go up against Mouse in the very last week. So that'll be very interesting.
Oh, powerhouse.
Because Barcelona could be... They're a dark horse. For me right now, they're power ranked 3rd in the whole of EU. And I reckon they could somehow sneak regionals. It's a ways off, don't get me wrong. But they're ones to watch and be careful of.
We'll see how well it will go for them. However, we have to see. We have to move on and talk about Veloce next. You mentioned them being the team that the FC Barcelona were able to win against. And the storyline we've been following for Veloce for the longest time ever is the fact they skate by on certain results. You know, I think that obviously Reciprocity was one. TSM was sort of another, I guess, because of the fact they're on a slump position. Like both teams are in slumps at the moment. And, you know, the week before this past gone weekend, where they had Singularity and Endpoint, the only times they actually got some legitimate results for me, and against Endpoint as well, you know, that was the series that sort of showed off the issues that Veloce have. I did say that the caveat there was the fact that they're good at adjusting, but in the Mousesports series, they didn't do anything of any sort of, like, you know, value for me at the very least. Now, I'm not sure if you concur or if you like to disagree or anything like that. But Veloce. Yeah, I think that's the thing that you wanted to focus on the most, because like Veloce did not have a good performance against the Mousesports side, and you know, again, the questions still are there for me. Is like, are they skating by on certain results, like beating ASM, who are a team I would say that are probably one of the lowest level teams in the league? Are they skating by on the fact that Reciprocity are fucking shit now? Are they skating by on the fact that TSM are also shit now? You know, like, you know, what's the damage with Veloce at the moment? Because I don't know what to think about this team.
So when we, just to point out as well, with the Invitational, Veloce beat FCB 3-1 and beat Endpoint 3-0 there, just to add on a little bit of context to this, because like I said, Veloce's losses so far this season have been to Mouse last week. Terrible game for them. They didn't even bother. And they lost to FCB in a very close game 5 back in week 1. Now, Veloce's remaining opponents are Dig and Vitality, the two teams above them in league. And it's coming to the point now, and this is something I'm going to delve into in a future little project. Don't think we're ready to announce that really yet, how big it'll go. But it's the point of there's got to be something going on with Veloce. There's got to be a reason for them to win rather than just skating, because you watch them on the pitch, they're not anything to write home about, but they get the results. There's got to be something there, and it's something that is bewildering to an analyst, you know?
Yeah, like it's so fucking bewildering to me, because like I'm slowly being converted to the idea that Veloce are a good team, but then I see results like Mousesports, and I consider all the factors of what I personally count.
That is their only bad game this season, though. That, to me, leads. They've got consistency. You know, they're a very consistent team, which is great. And it could just be that consistency is king, you know, that's why they're doing so well throughout, you know, all these tournaments, is they're the only ones that are consistent. Every other team is so up and down at the moment with the current meta of Rocket League. Is that purely it? I don't know. This is something, like I said, that I'm going to deep dive into, and I'm really intrigued by Veloce, because again, none of these players you would rate as being top 14 worthy. Maybe Casio is the only one there. Everyone else you'd think are more borderline bottom of RLCS, but as a team together, they're currently fucking third.
I'm still umming about it. Like, I think I also have to do a deep dive in my own personal time at some point and just go back through every fucking VOD from this season and try to figure out what it is that Veloce are doing, because I mean, I think
you got to go further. I think you got to go back to Worlds, you know?
Possibly even, yeah. I mean,
the change up there.
I mean, there's a lot of and ah about it. I mean, yeah, I say that I agree with you. They are consistent, but for me, consistency doesn't get you this far. You know, I mean, I think it would get you a decent, like, middle of the table position for Veloce. Like, but they're currently in third position. So like, I've got to look back on everything and try and figure things out, because, like, you know, I've got to come in with a fresh mind on this, because Veloce is sort of like, you know, I'm getting convinced, but I'm not 100% convinced just yet for this team. You know, a team that certainly have convinced all of us this season, however, have been Dignitas. Obviously, we talked about their close save against FC Barcelona, but Vitality this season, this week, they are the ones that took the spotlight away from them, because they managed to beat them. 3-2. Finally, Dignitas with a fucking loss on the board, and that actually puts Velixo Vitality in the top. They are top position, first place, and everything like that. What a fucking series, by the way. All 5 games. And it came down to, you know, Dignitas getting the first 2 on the match point, and then Velixo Vitality just flipping the switch on. And suddenly, we saw a fucking beast awaken. Like, a fucking beast woke up and just, you know, dominated Rocket League. It was like the fucking rising of the Undertaker from WWE or some shit. Like, I swear, Dan, it was absolutely ridiculous. Velixo Vitality just absolute. I don't know. I don't know where this came from. Like, this came out of fucking nowhere.
Well, it's even to the point of, with Vitality, we'll start off with them. Throughout the entirety of this season, we've been going, Alpha's not fitting right. This team looks weaker than they did with Scrub. You know, we were even proposing that maybe they swap out Alpha at the end of the season. And this was whilst they were going undefeated. You know, this is a team that aren't just gunning for simple wins. They're gunning for the whole title, you know? Unfortunately, they won't be able to get Worlds 2 times in a row coming up, but it's still the point of that's their target. Anything less is not good enough for them. So this is the moment where it feels like it finally clicked. Don't get me wrong, they took down Reciprocity, a great team nonetheless, you know? But Dig was the real test, because you got to think Dig, since Worlds, have been on an absolute tear. I don't know what it was about going off to Spain, you know, for LAN, but they just did not falter. The only team that stopped them, and it is so fucking poetic, is Vitality in what I think is the best game of Rocket League I've ever seen. That semi-finals again between Dig and Vitality there. This, in those first 2 games, just felt like Dig are unstoppable now. You know, Vitality are playing okay. They're playing quite decent, but they just did not have it. Go into that game 3, go into that overtime, and Vitality suddenly, they got the answers. They had figured out how to play as a 3-man unit together. And going forward, oh boy, everyone better be quivering, because Vitality are coming to take names.
Oh,
they
my
are
goodness.
Unstoppable.
Yeah, like if I was Mousesports or Veloce in the next couple of weeks, I would be like fucking, you know, I would be like the shoppers that kind of stack up on the fucking toilet paper, because holy shit, like it's you're like, gonna need it's gonna be holy shit.
This Vitality in Dig is actually the reason why I am the saddest about there not being a Worlds this coming season, mate. Because they are needed there, because we would see them in the finals. The thing that annoys me most, and I know it's not an official record or whatever, but over on Liquipedia, they have the unofficial champions of the world, and that's currently sitting with fucking Cloud9 of all teams. It was held by, you know, so many different teams throughout the points and all of that, mainly NRG, but it's just to the point, if you look at right now and you go, Dig really should have had that title, and Vitality should have just taken it away from them.
Can we like take the unofficial world champion thing concept and actually put it into a fucking like LAN event? Like, this is something I've always wanted to do in the context of esports.
Maybe like a WSOE or something, you know?
Well, that was the original plan. We saw how well that shit went. But no, seriously, Sodix, right? Like, come hit me up, right? I'll get a pitch going for you, and we can like fucking like we can fucking like, you know, go and prepare this whole like idea of like a LAN event in which you have like a title belt and everything, because like this is bullshit. There's no way that Cloud9 are the unofficial world champions. Like, fuck off. Just fuck off. There's no way.
Hey, Vitality after that win though did go to the top power ranked team on Liquipedia.
True that.
There is a small amount of justice in the world.
NRG no longer on top. I think we need to put together our own world rankings, Bacon. Though I think that's what we need to do. Like, we need to come up with our.
Don't give away the plan. What are you?
I'm teasing some stuff, you know. I'm just teasing a couple of things. SSP2. I'm just teasing a couple of things, you know. Just the sort of like, you know. Just
at this point, you might be teasing some collabs with other content creators.
Oh yeah, no, I'm definitely not.
No,
no, you know, definitely nothing is going on. There's nothing special behind the scenes here at RLAfterShock SSP2. We're definitely not doing anything specific, you know. We're just having a fun, you know, just a fun little time. SSP2.
The thing that annoys me about that is that one's ready to go. We're just waiting for one fucking thing, and that's the announcement trailer to be finished. Oh, that
no, don't reveal that part, Bacon. There's nothing going on. Of course there's not. But back on track. Vitality and Dignitas right now, they are looking like a fucking stomper of 2 teams. And coming into this season, like, we sort of like kind of saw this coming, but we were very cynical to the idea of there being 2 big European number 1s. And again, as you mentioned, like, I want to see these 2 teams at LAN. I want to see them take on North America.
This season, we thought it would be the big 4, not the big 2. We thought Mouse and Reciprocity were going to be challenging in there. And the thing is, what those 2 lacked, Dig and Vitality have now taken and grown. I am happy with two incredible teams rather than four good teams, It's all about quality for me over quantity. And these two teams are just absolutely full to the brim of quality at the moment, aren't they?
And you bet your ass, by the way, that these two squads are going to be at the fucking grand finals of the European regionals. Like, you bet your ass.
If they're not, I will allow it, because the drama, the hype around that will be awesome to see.
If not, you're going to put together a pitch of Psionics so we can have a $50,000 invitational for those two teams, and we take a fucking show match. I don't care. I will fucking run a show match. Okay, we'll get some PC hires. We'll do some networking. We'll do a LAN. We'll fucking fly them into the UK. Fuck coronavirus. Let's just fucking do it and get these two teams.
I can tell you, it's going to be the Aftershock World Conquest, and we introduce each game by going, let's get ready to rock it, and just absolutely smash it together. It'd be beautiful.
Absolutely not. And on that note, we're gonna not quite end. Actually, we have to do next week's matches for the RLCS. No double weeks. I mean, honestly, that could have been the perfect fucking way to end it off there, Bacon. But we have to do a last little bit of housekeeping. Again, we've got to do our predictions and previews for next week's matches. Week 7, the penultimate week of league play. It's all coming to a close soon. And we've got Dignitas taking on Endpoint, Reciprocity taking on TSM, Singularity taking on Endpoint for Endpoint's doubleheader week, Veloce taking on the Dignitas side, FCB taking on AS Monaco, and finally Vitality taking on Mousesports. Start things off. Which match is your sort of I don't even know what. Which is your highlight match?
Your highlight game? Oof. I'm gonna go with Vitality versus Mouse because of potential, but I look at that week and go, oof, this is the bad week.
Yeah, this will be the bad week. Vitality Mousesports possibly could be the most fun one just because they are two relatively decent teams, and Mousesports having their inconsistencies to see if they can try and sort it out. We have seen good performances out of them, but right now Vitality, certainly with their scary sort of form, I think they still should be able to take a decent victory above them. But yeah, no, I agree with you. This is definitely not going to be one of the big RLCS weeks. But with that being said, top to bottom, predictions, let's go.
So 3-0 to Dig. Let's go 3-1 to Rep because they're bound to fuck up one game. Singularity to take on. Actually, how the fuck did I overlook that one? Singularity versus Endpoint is the best game of the week. Sorry. Singularity to beat Endpoint 3-2. Dig to beat Veloce 3. It's fucking Veloce. It's going to be 3-2, and I hate that so much, but it'll be 3-2. FCB ASM, it will be FCB 3-0 easy, and then 3-1 to Renault Vitality. I'm worried that's going to be 3-0 as well.
I still think that RV versus Mousesports is going to be my highlight match. I just don't think that Singularity Endpoint will deliver as well as these two teams will. But
it will deliver, trust me.
Well, I'll hold you to that for next week. For now, though, my predictions: 3-1 for Dignitas, 3-1 for Reciprocity. I'm going to go 3-2 to Endpoint. I think these guys have what they need to beat Singularity. Again, Singularity has still been a little bit disappointing to me. Endpoint have shown a little bit of potential. I've got Dignitas going 3-1 above Veloce, FC Barcelona going 3-0 above AS Monaco, and then Renault Vitality going 3-1 above Mousesports. And that wraps up the Championship Series. That wraps up the show for this week, Bacon. A bit of a haphazard sort of throw together one, mostly because we've been fucking busy. However, next week, I promise I will watch all the matches. All of them. I'll even catch up.
I will hold you to that.
I will even catch up with the fucking I'll even catch up with the European Invitational so far, because why the fuck not? I'm gonna just sit back in my fucking chair this evening and just be completely reamed out at 3 a.m. just like
consumed by
Sandrock gaming or some shit. I don't know. That sounds like a really bad thing, but I'll leave it be.
I don't think they're playing this evening, are they? I can't remember. I'm
catching up with the rest of the VODs though, so you know.
True.
Anyways, that is going to be it from us here on RLAfterShock for this week. We'll be back next week, hopefully a little bit earlier. Obviously, we had to push this week's recording back a bit because we've just been so fucking busy with Arena Clash, with TCS, and obviously with the doubleheader week and everything. Next week should be back on track. Next week we should be back on form. We'll have a show ready for you on Tuesday or Wednesday evening. But till that point, though, I've been the Eternal J. This has been Digital Bacon. This has been RLAfterShock. Any final words from you, mate, before we head off?
Yep. Just yesterday, it got announced there is a collaboration going on between Lego and Mario, to which this proves even more. I want little Lego Rocket League cars. Please, can it happen? Please.
I think the Hot Wheels. I think the Hot Wheels. No, I think the Hot Wheels fucking collab was
but
more.
Build your own arena would just be so fucking sick. And they have those little flames. You can stick it on the back. Toys, Jay. Toys. I want them.
You're a fucking child. And so am I. We're gonna get out of here now. We're gonna see you next week for even more of the Aftershock.